Hi, I'm Jody Adams, and I'm in the Rialto kitchen. I'm going to prepare a dish called Homard l'Américaine in honor of Julia Child. And I actually remember Julia and lobsters because there were a number of times when I had dinner at her house and she would take the lobster shells and put them down the disposal thinking that it would take care of them, when in fact jammed the disposal, called the plumber. And I know it happened more than once. So when I think of Julia, I often think of lobsters, and this seemed like an appropriate recipe. I'm going to show you how to break down a live lobster. You could break down a cooked lobster exactly the same way. I take the knife, and you have to have the courage of your convictions. Put the knife right between where the tail and the head meet, and a quick plunge, split the lobster right down the middle. As you can see, I have a cutting board that's sitting in a tray so that all of the juices from the lobster, when they pour out, fall into the tray as opposed to going all over the counter. I will separate the claws from the body. And separate the tail as well. Yeah. And then with the head, so I've got two tail pieces, and I've taken out the digestive tract. I have two claws, and take off the rubber bands and just crack the claws, because I'm going to cook them in their shell, but I want to penetrate, the heat to penetrate. And then I will save what I have here, which is, this is the roe, and this is the liver or tamale. And these things I don't want. This part of the head. So again, the roe, get rid of this, and the tamale. And that's the way you break down a lobster. Okay, so I'm going to make homard à l'américaine, and I have 3 lobsters I've broken down, and they're completely dead. You don't have to worry about that. They've been killed. We said goodbye, and they're fine. I'm going to start by adding 3 tablespoons of olive oil to the pan. You want a nice hot pan, nice and smoky. And then I will add the meat in, meat side down, and just to get some color on it. So I'm putting the tails in first. They're curling. I'm going to put the heads in as well, because they give nice flavor to the stew, and maybe somebody wants to eat the legs. And then the claws. The smell coming off of this is amazing. So there's nothing like the smell of toasting lobster shells. And they actually give the sauce its flavor. That's why we haven't taken them completely out of the shell, because you want that nice toasty shell flavor. Okay, this is to this point where they're nice and red. Ooh. Didn't want to let go. There we are. And then start adding the vegetables. I have some diced carrot. That's about a medium carrot. Beautifully diced, very French, this brunoise. A perfect brunoise. And this cooks for about 5 minutes until it's nice and tender. And then season the lobster as it's sitting here. And check to see, for instance, if you missed digestive tract, which I did right here, so just go back and pull that out and discard it. Yep. Okay, and then add a little shallot, the smashed garlic. I'm going to season this with a little salt and pepper as well. Okay, what's next? Shallots, garlic, and the cognac. Now I'm supposed to flame this. See if I can do that. There we go, Julia. That's for Julia. It's okay. And some tomatoes. Tomato paste. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. In many of the recipes that Julia has in her cookbook, even the seafood recipes, she calls for a flour and butter base to a sauce, essentially a roux. This recipe did not call for it, but it did call for tomato paste, which doesn't do exactly what a roux does, but it does thicken the sauce nicely. I have a cup of fish stock, 2 cups of white wine, some parsley that I'm going to chop, and a little bit of tarragon. Okay. So I'm putting the tails back in. And the rest of it as well. And any juices that have accumulated, you want to put in as well. Beautiful, isn't it? Okay. So I'm going to cover that and let it just simmer on top of the stove for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to check on our lobsters, see how they're doing. Since the heat comes up in the middle of the pan, it's important to move the lobster pieces around so they cook evenly. And they have just a few more minutes, not the 20 minutes that Julia recommends. And while they're cooking, I'm going to make the compound butter with the tamale and the roe. Oops, she recommends pushing it through a sieve like this, so it's nice and smooth. So I've got 6 tablespoons of room temperature butter, and I am tediously pushing the tamale and the coral through a sieve per Julia. What you could do is put the whole thing in a food processor, spin it around, and make a nice smooth puree. This was before, these recipes were written before food processors. So. Okay. And then just mix this together well. Season with a little salt and pepper. A couple tablespoons of herbs. This is a mixture of parsley and tarragon. Tarragon is a great herb for lobster, very French. A little bit of lemon juice, which I'm not sure she calls for, but I think it probably needs it. And stir it all up. Okay. Now, I'm assuming our lobsters are done. And indeed they are. Everything's red, nice bright red. Don't want to take them further than that, or the meat will be tough. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to taste this to make sure the sauce is the way we want it. Delicious. And then I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of the hot sauce into this compound butter. And whisk it up. Add the lobster back to the pan. And then add the sauce. Wow. So I've added the butter, I'm stirring it around, and I've actually turned off the heat because you don't want the sauce to simmer. You want the butter to remain emulsified in the sauce and coat these beautiful lobsters. So we have these gorgeous little tails. 6 halves. The claws. And then the heads. Or chests. I think Julia called them chests. And I'm going to taste this one more time. Add a little bit of water. It's thickened up quite a bit. And then pour it over the lobster. I would serve this with pasta or rice and a beautiful crisp glass of Chablis. And I think it needs a little garnish. I have fennel in the tarragon family, some parsley leaves, and a couple of little pansies. I have no idea if Julia would approve of flowers, but sure is pretty.